seated. It's a long time since we've met, so welcome back to everyone. I'd like to advise all present that in order to improve engagement in our democratic process, our meeting this evening will be recorded with the audio equipment, and it will be published on the Council's website. The meeting will also be filmed and live streamed, and if any members of the public do not wish to be filmed, they could leave now if they don't want to be filmed. Thank you very much. Not councillors. Members are also reminded, please respect other members when they're talking. Do not speak across the chamber when other members are speaking. All requests must come through me as the chair, and I would also like to remind members to stand and use their microphones when speaking. And please remember, turn your mobile phones off or onto silent. Thank you very much. And before we begin this evening, I would like to ask Reverend Callan Barlow to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wonder where your point of vision is in terms of the horizon line. Where do you look to? It's often the point from which we see everything else in terms of distance, clarity and definition. My point of vision and horizon lines have been significantly challenged over the last 17 days. Last night I returned to Grays after spending just over 2 weeks working with the Anglican Church in Kenya. We travelled many, many miles, visiting many places, zigzagging a wide corridor running from Nairobi, travelling north over 300 kilometres, crossing the equator to a real distant place called Archer's Post, and then by a different route the journey south back to Nairobi, and then the 8.5-hour flight back to Heathrow yesterday evening. And being the rector of Grays for over 12 years and engaging in the life of our town and borough, I thought that I knew quite a lot about many different cultures and lifestyles, but the points of horizon by which I define wealth and poverty have been significantly recalibrated. How I understand gratitude and indifference, care, concern, welcome and hospitality have all been challenged. I'm needing to reprocess my definitions and understanding of these things. I'm also going to challenge myself not to think that I know or understand many things, because I've discovered I don't. The world is much bigger than my simple understanding as the rector of Grays or the dean of Thurrock. And when I'm feeling hard done by or ready to have a moan, and my wife tells me I'm good at that, I'm going to try and remember all those who I've had the privilege to meet and learn something from, and from their examples. I'd be very happy to share more details, but that's not for now. But I would encourage you to engage within the wider world within which we live, and perhaps like me you might see some things somewhat differently. And so a short prayer. We thank you, O God, for all that we have, and we pause to remember those who have so little in terms of how we might define richness. Let us be ready to learn from others, to strive to make the world a fairer and more just planet. And as our full council meets this evening, let us strive to think about the greater good for others and not ourselves. Amen. Amen. And, I'm going to ask for your permission, if I may, Madam Mayor, to leave, as I have many emails and much sleep to catch up on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Good evening to you. We now move on to item 1, which is apologies for absence. I've received apologies from councillors Haig and Salmons. Do we have any other apologies? Councillor Gledhill?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Kelly will not be here soon.
Any further apologies? Councillor Gerry?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Potter.
Councillor Spill.
Councillor Ake.
That's it, thank you very much indeed. We now move on to item 2, minutes. Kathy, sorry, did you...
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I also say Councillor Fish as an apologies as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Minutes, item 2. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 25th of July 2018 be approved as a correct record as shown on pages 9 to 40 of the agenda. Is that seconded?
Great.
Are there any comments on the accuracy? Councillor Redsill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just clarity on page 11, speaking about Councillor Wasling, Diane Revel, it should be the other way round on there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Redsill. So, subject to those amendments, the minutes are approved. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 3, items of urgent business. I've not agreed to the consideration of any items of urgent business. Item 4, may I have any declarations of interest? None? Thank you. Item 5. I would like us all to take a moment and remember the fallen Thurrock residents of World War I on page 7 of the agenda. And I'd also like to read out the names of those fallen in the months of August and September, as we didn't have a council meeting in those months. I shall start off with August. We have James Harold Hollyman, James William Gower, Parmenter Philip Harvey, John William Valentine, Enoch Godfellow, William Sidney Greenwood, James Frederick Purvitt, Ernest Edward Sutlin, William True George Davis, Arthur Hurst, Alfred George Gibson, Harold Thomas Ogden, William Charles Abrahams, Frederick Gilson, James Goodman, Walter Mead, James Henry Diprose, William Edward Garrett, William Hubert Dennis, George Alfred Reeve, Herbert Hanscombe, Arthur Lark, Basil Stanley Johnson. We'll now move on to September. Albert Henry Bakewell, Land Wright, Alexander Wilson, Samuel Lighton, William Alfred Barton, Charles William Smithson, David Victor Newborn, Ernest John Bierman, John Richard Pollard, Frederick Dorner, Christopher Frederick Dowman, James Southgate, Samuel Bannister, Clifford Peter Parker, John Cuckoo, George Albert Cosby, George Stanley, Herbert Smith, Arthur Albert Emily, Charles Hazelton, Thomas Edwin Russell, James Carnell, David Hull, William Stubbs, Leonard Turner Choppin, Robert Finch, Frederick Reeve, William Thomas Cady and Charles Gentry. We now move on to October. William Samuel Key, Daniel O'Connell, Reginald James Cook, John Moore, James Bertie Coote, Charles Barker, Stanley Bertie Turner, William James Edmund Vincent, Alfred Henry Last, Percy James Tyler, William Robert Cricket, John Whithead, George Macklin, Frederick Charles Cowley, William Leonard Tandy, Ernest Alfred Chapman, Thomas Challis, John Ross, Charles Joseph Browning, Walter Martin, William James Claydon, and Ernest George Taylor. When we read out 3 months' worth, we can really see the amount of young people that lost their lives, and we feel very saddened by that. I'd like to make a few announcements this evening. Firstly, it is with great pleasure that I've seen the borough looking so splendid for our World War I celebrations. They look absolutely fabulous everywhere we go. And congratulations to the council also for putting out the large poppies on our lampposts and things. It really is heartening to see, and so many hand-knitted tributes, and of course North Stifford really putting all guns out and making it look absolutely wonderful. So many people with so many sad losses, and we'll be celebrating that, celebrating their lives. Also, we will be having our bells in our churches rung out. You may have been hearing them trying out the bell ringers, and it's going to be a wonderful celebration, especially on the 11th. The whole nation will be bell ringing, and we've agreed to do that with the Lord Lieutenant of Essex, so we look forward to that. Councillor Gregson, I understand, sorry, Gregson, I do beg your pardon. Beg your pardon. I understand you'd like to speak with regard to a recent trip you made to the Royal British Legion Standard Bearers. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I didn't go, but I'm speaking on behalf of those that did go. On the 8th of August this year, brought together standard bearers from all over the United Kingdom and beyond. This was to celebrate the 90 years pilgrimage and also the 100 years war. All the standard bearers from Essex were taken by coach to Ypres in Belgium. For the British Legion, this was the largest membership event to take place in modern history. Most of the funds to send the standards was raised by their local club. Each club was asked to raise £1,000 for the 4-day event. I would like to thank, at this point in time, Port of Tilbury and Ensign Buses for their support to the Chapel St Mary branch. What an experience for young and old alike. 1,113 branches attended and 1,160 standard bearers on parade. A moving event for everyone, remembering those who lost their lives so we could live ours. Also to remember those who returned. As the last post was played, poppies were released from the vaulted ceiling of the memorial. Surely those who attended will never forget the emotions they felt at that moment. The memories will stay with them forever. We must never ever forget the lives that was given. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that lovely tribute, Councillor Redhill. Now I go to Councillor Gledhill. Do you wish to make any announcements?
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's normally quite easy to tell us. Councillor Redhill's the pretty one. As we know, we've been away from Shane for a couple of months. This will go on a little bit longer than normal. As we know by now, Highways England is currently running its consultation on the disgraceful lower Thames crossing proposals. The proposed crossing is now a monstrous 3-lane motorway which will tear through the borough. It will deliver no obvious benefits for local businesses or residents, with very little connectivity to it. That in itself fails Highways England's own scheme objective, which is supporting sustainable local development and regional economic growth in the medium to long term. Highways England have removed the Tilbury Link Road. Instead, they're putting a motorway rest area in East Tilbury. And for Highways England to describe the mess at the A13 junction as simplification simply beggars belief. Lorries coming north on the LCC can't travel west on the A13 to get to Port of Tilbury, so they have to go on the A13 junction and double back. This is going to add nothing but more pressure onto the Manaway roundabout. So clearly they've learned nothing from the big mistakes that we saw with the lack of east-facing slips at Lakeside and the problems that's caused over the decades. I could carry on for quite some time with the problems that this will cause, but as we know, we've got a motion about this later where I'm sure all members will be chipping in both their own personal experiences, what they've heard from their residents, and what we know in relation to health and everything else that this light will bring to us. I would encourage everyone who lives and works in the borough to get involved in this consultation by attending one of the public information events and completing and returning the consultation form by Thursday the 20th of December. This can be found online, or if you go to the Grays Library or Tilbury Hub, you can get paper versions. Now, I did mention the east-facing slips. It's great to see that the government have put aside 50 million to make that happen. That's going to hugely improve exiting of Lakeside, especially when it comes to the Christmas period when they're finally built. Now, as I mentioned at Cabinet, you would have seen recent media coverage on the whistleblowing allegations. And although I cannot speak about the specific case, I can confirm that the allegations have been made under the whistleblowing policy and procedure. This matter has been independently investigated in line with process, and is being done by a specialist barrister who has expertise in children's social care. This is still ongoing, and as soon as we can, we'll obviously release the findings of those. All whistleblowing allegations are robustly investigated, if necessary, with independent experts, as we've seen here. Discussions with the independent safeguarding barrister commenced on the 5th of September, having received the allegations on the 4th, following a letter dated in August. In addition, Ofsted, the government's responsible agency for child protection issues, have been kept informed of the status of the investigation. Equally, in regards to the media reports of hush money being paid to an individual, this was properly processed and signed off compensation payment to a complaint in line with the finance procedure rules, and was agreed by the relevant officers and political leadership at the time. Now we're going to move on to the very important C17 injunction and dispersal order. I'm sure that all members here will join me in commending the excellent work which has taken place between Essex Police and Thurrock Council in securing this injunction against the criminal gang C17. I will be asking a question about this later, but it now stops a 10th person from going to certain parts of the borough, from associating with fellow gang members, from wearing hoodies or driving bikes in certain areas. This injunction is an innovative approach to tackling the issue of gang violence, and I would urge the community to get behind this and report if they see any of the 10 gang members breaching the injunction. Essex Police have also secured a dispersal order covering much of Chappett 100, Lakeside and parts of West Thurrock and Grays. The order will help them to prevent any Halloween-related antisocial behaviour that residents experienced last year in and around the Marks area. The order came into force at 4 p.m. today and lasts until 4 p.m. tomorrow. It gives our local policing officers the power to move people on that are causing antisocial behaviour in the area. As the Mayor's already mentioned, we're really going for it when it comes to the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. As mentioned, a series of events will be happening in the coming weeks, and we've spent quite a bit of time ensuring that we are celebrating at every single war memorial this year. In preparations, as mentioned, 834 copies, one for each of the brave servicemen who lost their life in the war, will be displayed in Thurrock. All the war memorials have undergone specialist cleaning and maintenance. Special commemorative planters are being installed at war memorials. Silent soldier silhouettes will be on display at war memorials and in cemeteries. And we've helped the communities help restore the beacons at Coalhouse Fort and Purfleet for the lighting, something that's a big national event. I am very pleased with all the efforts at the preparations to make this anniversary an important occasion that everyone's going to get behind. And as you said, well done to the people of North Stifford for all their hard work in making North Stifford come alive for this event. We will, of course, be also remembering those that paid the ultimate price for our freedom in wars after the First World War. Clean, cut and fill it update. 1,784 potholes have been filled on our roads, with 99% of those done within target time. 790 acres of grass has been cut. That's equivalent to 24 times the retail floor space of Lakeside Shopping Centre. Our street cleaning teams have collected 1,641 tonnes of litter, which is the equivalent weight of 400 at the bottom line. 908 fly tips have been cleared. 2,127 penalty notices have been issued for offences such as littering, dropping cigarette butts, various forms of antisocial behaviour, including spitting. And we've also issued 52 £400 fixed penalty notices for people for fly tipping in the borough. As we're aware, the Chancellor announced his budget this week with an extra £650 million for social care, £45 million for disabled facilities grant, and £84 million for children's services over the next 5 years. £28.8 billion National Road Fund will support roads and infrastructure. Local authorities will receive an extra £420 million to deal with potholes and other traffic maintenance issues, £150 to tackle traffic hotspots such as making improvements to junctions. I'm sure we can all name a big one in Thurrock that requires that. £500 million for housing infrastructure funding, something that Thurrock has a history of successfully bidding for. Obviously there's a headline announcement, so I do look forward to understanding what this actually means for Thurrock, and we'll obviously update members of the Council and Cabinet accordingly. And finally, the reason that Councillor Tom Kelly isn't here this evening, I'm sure all members would like to hear. Councillor Kelly's wife Leah gave birth to young Ellis earlier in the month. Both mother, baby and indeed Councillor Kelly are doing well. And he does send his apologies and points out it's the first full council he's missed in a significant long time, but he thinks he has a very, very small, cute but lovely excuse. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gentile. We now move on to item 6, which are questions from the public. We have 2 questions that have been submitted this evening and accepted by the monitoring officer. No questions were rejected. For the benefit of the recording of this meeting, I would ask each questioner to read out their question in full when asked to do so. We do have 30 minutes for this item. I don't envisage that we're going to take that long. Can you please read out your question? Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Councillor Howard. Could the portfolio holder for education and health tell me how many children are currently waiting for a school place by the SEND department, please?
Councillor Howden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Atkins. As of the start of this year, there were 1,331 education and healthcare plans held by the Council. When I checked last week, out of this 1,131, there are 5 children who have plans but don't currently have a school place. So that's equivalent to about 0.5%. Out of these 5 individuals, 3 of these children are currently receiving home tuition, and there are consultations in place for all 3 to make arrangements with a special school for replacement. The 4th child was previously home educated, however this has now been deemed unsuitable, and there is a consultation in place with a mainstream school to seek replacement. And finally, the 5th child who moved into Thurrock at the end of 2018, there is ongoing work to ensure that the EHCP plan reflects the input of all professionals into the decision-making process. So out of the 5 out of almost 1,400, it's a combination of areas where we still have to do that little bit of extra work to go the final mile to get a child replaced, and also balance the issues of parents in terms of what support they may wish to have in the home setting.
Mr. Atkins, do you wish to pose a supplementary question? Thank you, go ahead.
Sorry for understanding. Do parents having to stay at home to look after their children because of the SEND department can't allocate a school place? Some are falling behind with their rent and other bills due, so they do work to look after their children. As a portfolio holder, could you look into these cases as a matter of urgency, please?
Councillor Howden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, certainly any parent who writes to me, I'm always happy to look into their case with my officers. It gives me the opportunity to give a brief update in terms of what we're doing with our SEND department. Over the last 2.5 years, we've worked very hard to strengthen the SEND department to support all children with special educational needs and disabilities. One of the challenges that we've got in Thurrock is, despite how talented and hard-working our team is, we've got 2 outstanding rated special needs schools that attracts a huge amount of parents here who believe that by moving to Thurrock, they'll get access to one of these schools. The result is a over-demand for a lack of supply. So we do not have a surplus of these places. However, quite a few parents do move here believing that we do. We've done a huge amount to try and address the level of demand we're experiencing. We've expanded the size of the SEND team. We've hosted a peer review and inclusion conference to look at how that bigger team can work more efficiently. And of course, we're investing £20 million to build a brand new special needs school. However, we need to be aware of the fact the council can make mistakes, and we don't always move in the most efficient or always the quickest manner. We need to understand what the criticism is from some parents and how we can address it. There are issues in the system. Parents do expect us to act, and it isn't always good enough, and I get that. To this end, I'm announcing that a series of engagement events will take place over the next few months as we review our wider performance of how we process, formulate and action SEND plans. Obviously, we're going to talk to schools as a part of this engagement process, as we often do through regular SEND consultations. But what's vital for me is that we hear the voices of the parents who, on the vast majority of occasions, are saved by the machine, but on the few rare occasions where the machine lets them down. That's why I'm going to be hosting a series of events for parents to come forward and give their honest thoughts and impressions of what it's like to work with Thurrock Council and the wider system. No filters, no communication officers, just myself, other senior cabinet members and our most senior officers. Face to face with the parents, frank, honest and open. I'm very lucky that we have the Parents and Carers Association helping us to organise the events. There'll be 3 events across the borough, different locations, different types of buildings and at different times, designed to allow as many people to come forward as possible. It can't just be about listening, but then to act. One of the things we're blessed with in Thurrock is a very strong relationship with our schools. That's why I've worked very hard over the last few weeks to solicit the support of the post-16 SEND lead from Hull's College, the Chief Executive of the Treetop Special Needs Trust, and the head of East Tilbury. That is a SEND expert for every age group in receipt of full-time education. That's an amazing resource of a panel who will sit down with us and go through some of the complaints we're facing. We're a listening council, we're an active council. It will never be job done with SEND because of how complex it is and because of how much demand there is in the system. Services can always be better. I'm very clear about that, and we want to work with parents, work with our schools to create that more efficient system.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Atkins, for your question.
Thank you.
Mr. Perry, would you like to come and take a seat, please? Good evening, Mr. Perry. Would you like to put out your question, please, to Councillor Collins, as on page 41 of the agenda? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council recently submitted 2 complaints to the Independent Press Standards Organisation about the editor of a local newspaper. Was there any financial cost to the public? If yes, how much?
Councillor Collins.
Thank you
Please
for your
respond,
question.
please.
Beg pardon?
Please respond.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Perry, for your question. There are no financial costs involved in submitting complaints to the Independent Press Standards Organisation, known as IPSO. It is important to note that the complaints submitted by the Council to IPSO were related to the content of stories published, not complaints about the editor.
Mr. Perry, do you wish to pose a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Councillor Collins, I'm pleased that there was no cost, that no cost was incurred. However, I am concerned that it appears that the Council is at war with the local press. Councillor Collins, were you and your Cabinet colleagues consulted before the Council decided to submit the complaint to the Independent Press Standards Organisation, both of which were dismissed? And did the Cabinet agree with that decision? With the benefit of hindsight, would you all agree with me that rather than trying to out-Trump President Trump, Council officers should in future be more circumspect before complaining about the press? The press are not, nor should they be, the Council's propagandists.
Councillor Collins, wish to respond?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I should point out to you that if, as councillors, we're giving strategic guidance, but operational running of these departments is the matter of the officers. And as we've previously stated, the Council continues to engage with all members of the press, and this position has not changed. The issue relates to a decision taken to under the Council's agreed unreasonable behaviour procedure, which is in place place to deal with unacceptable behaviour by individuals. There is nothing to do, this has nothing to do with freedom of speech. Freedom of expression is a fundamental right under British law and international human rights law.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We now move on to item 7 in our agenda, which are petitions from members of the public and councillors. I've been advised that there's 3 notices of petition being received this evening. The first one is Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith, you've got 2 minutes to speak on your petition on behalf of your AG residents.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This petition, which was put together by one of the local businessmen, involves the signatures of 200 residents and concerns public safety at the notorious junction of Ailey High Street and Ship Lane. This particular junction has suffered over the years with council street furniture being smashed and damage to local businesses, particularly cellar doors to the local Ship public house on the corner that went into the thousands. So the petition requests the council to look at improving the safety of this junction by way of a 3-way Pelican crossing system, thus providing protection to the public and road users alike. I'm really up for this one. I think something has to be done. I've seen first-hand what happens when we get busy traffic and particularly HGVs doing illegal turns in the high street. So the residents would like the council to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor Allen, you now have 2 minutes to speak on your petition around reviewing the permit parking in the Hobart Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, Chamber. I am submitting this petition tonight on behalf of the many residents of the 3 high-rise blocks located in Tilbury. Although the PPA scheme that has been introduced to Tilbury has, in essence, been a success, however, the residents of Brisbane House, Fremantle House and Tasmania House feel that not much thought or consideration was given towards the high-rise blocks when the PPA was initially introduced, and will call upon Council to provide more adequate parking spaces for both the residents and friends and family that come to visit. If I may please suggest that the site of the former multi-storey car park located in Leicester Road be made secure and gated to increase, or if not double, the current 40 car parking spaces for the residents of these high-rise blocks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Councillor Cathy Kent, you have 2 minutes to speak on your petition in respect of the parking restrictions in Lodge Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I present this petition on behalf of the residents of Grays who are opposed to Thurrock Council's new interpretation of the parking restrictions on Lodge Lane Grays, which go against the agreement reached between the residents and Thurrock Council in 2005. We've got about 100 signatures on this petition. Every door we knocked on, people were only too pleased to sign it. We did not have one person refuse to sign it. I'd like to take this opportunity, if I may, Madam Mayor, to thank Sharon, who I believe is in the public gallery this evening, for all her hard work in helping me with the signatures on this petition. And I know we'll debate it later in the chamber, so I won't say more now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kent. We now move on to item 8 in the agenda, which is the update report in respect of petitions presented at full council and council offices. This can be found on pages 43 and 44. Any items, any matters arising on that particular item? No? Thank you. We then move on to item 10. Sorry, big pardon, it's item 9. Item 9 is appointments to committees and outside bodies, statutory and other panels. Councillor Gledhill, do you wish to make any changes to the appointments previously made?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are a couple of seats that we had offered out to other groups in relation to overview scrutiny, which will now be filling. Children's Services Overview Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Rigby. Standards and Audit Committee, Councillor Haig. Health and Wellbeing Overview Scrutiny Committee, be Councillor Kelly. On General Services, I'd like Councillor Jeffries and Councillor Holden to be put forward as subs, and Councillor Watkins has requested to come off the Common House School project, and I would obviously offer that particular post out to members of the council to be filled.
Thank you. Can we agree those before I move on to Councillor John Kent? Am I agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Councillor John Kent, do you wish to make any changes to the appointments previously made?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I will be replaced by Councillor Akinbohan, and I will take the opportunity to move Councillor Bookie Okanade to the position of Chair of that committee.
Thank you. Do we have agreement?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Councillor Bookie Okanade is now the Chair. Thank you. And Councillor Spielman, do you wish to make any changes to the appointments previously made?
No, I do not.
Thank you very much. We now move on to item 10. We've got 2 Cabinet reports this evening. The time allowed for each report is 15 minutes. I'll take 1 question from each member and then come back to members who may wish to ask if we have any time left to our allocation. The report of Councillor Johnson, the Cabinet Member for Housing, can be found on pages 45 to 58 of the agenda. Councillor Johnson, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for allowing me the time to introduce what is my first report as Cabinet Member for Housing. The Housing Service provides a range of functions, and the written report outlines achievements and the key challenges and opportunities facing the Council, both as a social landlord and a provider of statutory duties, and I would like to highlight some. The Prevention of Homelessness Act 2017 came into force in April this year and places a legal duty on the Council to give greater support in the prevention of homelessness and securing longer-term safe and suitable accommodation. This is very labour intensified, with a full homelessness application assessment taking on average up to 3 weeks to complete. This is a very welcome act, but there is no denying it has placed a considerable strain on the housing budget, with on average 5 cases of homelessness presented daily. The costliest area is using nightly private sector accommodation, which is something the Department is trying very hard to reduce. However, it has not been possible to rule this out completely, mainly due to the high levels of rent being sought by private landlords and competing demands from other local authorities trying to secure accommodation in Thurrock. And this may well show higher actual and forecast costs. I will, however, continue to work with officers in looking at ways for the Council to build purpose-built dwellings for the placing of homeless persons, in trying to cease landlords reaping the benefit of these inflated incomes. Via the HRA new build, we are in the process of delivering 3 projects, totaling 117 new affordable homes for rent, not 118 as the report suggests. In fact, only Tuesday week ago, I had the privilege to break ground at the site known as the Tops Club development in Argent Street, which will provide 29 new council homes in an excellent location close to amenities such as the riverfront, town centre and the railway station. In addition, the sites at Claudian Way, Chadwell and Calcutta Road, Tilbury will look to deliver a further 88 units of mixed accommodation, with the latter site providing for people approaching retirement. And I'm pleased to confirm that the tenders for Claudian Way have been evaluated, and I would expect a contractor on site very soon. Thurrock Regeneration Limited sees the company striving to achieve the development of 1,000 units over a 5-year period by way of continuously developed and refined sites, with their second site soon to be ready to deliver 26 affordable housing dwellings. And should their full housing target be achieved, we look to supply up to 350 affordable homes over that project period. I'd now like to turn to what I consider a very long overdue piece of work regarding our housing allocations policy, which will bring our registration procedure into the 21st century, enabling the Council to provide a thorough, tailored approach with a policy that is presented in the most meaningful context, allowing ease of understanding for those people on the list and for those wishing to join it, whilst being maintained on a regular basis. Phase 1 ended on the 17th of October and has already attracted a good number of responses. Phase 2 is scheduled to begin on the 5th of November, and when all consultation is completed and it has been through overview and scrutiny, I am confident the Cabinet can approve a solid and competent policy which will assist with the 10,000 households in the borough that the Council interacts with through the housing service. I have also requested officers to commission a garage review, which will see a task force assigned to the projects of garage management to establish an exact detail of our stock and a comparison of our current letting situation to that of our future aspirations.
Councillor Johnson, please. 1 minute.
To minimise losses through voids and eliminate antisocial behaviour. I'm sure all members in the chamber and people in the public gathering will recall the unfortunate fire that took place at George Tilbury House back on the 26th of June this year. The fire did prove the safety of our blocks with their decompartmentalisation construction, which, coupled with the rescue services instruction to stay put adhered to, resulted in no fatalities or casualties. And I'm pleased to share that the minimal damage which was done to close by flats is well underway. I would like to conclude by thanking the current Conservative government for listening to local government and scrapping the cap on council borrowing against their housing review accounts, which without question opens a portal for authorities to explore solving a countrywide housing shortage. This administration will fully investigate and continue via prudential borrowing rules.
Thank you, Councillor
Johnson.
You will have 2 minutes at the end to sum up. I now move on to... No, we have a strict timing and we do have to keep to that. Thank you. I now move on to the next part, which we have 8 minutes for. Councillor Gerald Rice, as Chair of Housing Overview and Scrutiny. Would you like to speak?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's good to see the report, particularly the new housing units are going to be built. And of course, we do look forward, now the government of relaxing the borrowing from the HRA to actually some more affordable homes, because when you have 8,000 people on the housing waiting list, we certainly need a lot more than, 500-600 homes being built. Everything is welcome, but we really need to engage in that, because if we go back to 1979, very briefly, we had 25,000 council homes, and people waited 6 months. Now it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, some people 10 years.
It's like a countdown to a question.
Terrible. There are some positives in here, but we do desperately need to get on with building new homes. And that is the question. How are we going to do that?
Very good.
We've finally got to the question. Councillor Johnson, would you like to answer that?
Sorry, what was the question? How are we going to build homes?
How are we going to get to build new homes?
Well, yes, with bricks and mortar. I'm sorry, it's 2018. The world has changed. It has moved on. We are doing everything we can to help the properties be built. As I told you, there's over 1,000 we're looking to do over the next 5 years through Thurrock regeneration, and the 3 projects we already have on the go are well on the way. So we will just continue to do that, Councillor. I'm sorry, I wish I could have answered it better.
Councillor John, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I too welcome the report. Can I just take the opportunity to welcome Councillor Johnson back? We may not agree politically, but I think this chamber is stronger for having Barry in it than not. Madam Mayor, nationally homelessness is up by 50% since 2010. Rough sleeping has doubled and 120,000 children are without a home to call their own. The report this evening tells us that this council had a duty to provide housing for 235 homeless households last year, and this year an average of 5 homeless cases are coming to the council for help every single working day. In an effort to deal with this crisis, the council now appears to be routinely housing homeless Thurrock families in temporary accommodation far outside the borough. Southend alone received 63 homeless families from Thurrock last year. Will the portfolio holder agree that Thurrock's homeless families should be found safe, suitable and secure accommodation within this borough? And will he agree to end the practice of exporting our homeless to other areas?
Councillor Johnson.
I suppose the quick answer is yes, of course. We would always like to house everybody we can back in here in Thurrock. It isn't always possible. As I did say in my report, we're fighting against other local authorities. They're putting people here. We have to look, if we cannot place people here, we have to place them the best place possible, because I think it actually says we have to find safe and suitable accommodation. But yes, I would agree with you that every effort will be taken to rehouse people here in Thurrock.
Councillor Spillman.
Thank you for the report. I've always said that there has been progress in the housing department in some areas. We've got a lot of challenges in other areas. Was the portfolio holder happy with the apparent painstaking effort that was made within a report book to the last housing committee in a motion agreed in this chamber to avoid any meaningful consideration of the need to install sprinklers in Thurrock's high-rise towers?
Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Spillman, it wasn't ignored, I can tell you that. And I think it may be Halloween, but it's very disingenuous for you to suggest that this administration is putting people's lives at risk for fear of pushing against their government or simply because of money. That's not the case. When it comes to the issues of sprinklers in our tower blocks, we have relied and will continue to rely on experts' opinions, not that of councillors seeking re-election. I'll restate that our tower block residents are not residing in an unlawful way legitimate, as the construction is very different to that of the unfortunate Grenfell Tower. The fire at Tilbury House proves that this construction is safe. However, let me point out that should the experts advise that sprinklers must be fitted throughout the properties, it will happen. We have fitted sprinklers in the refuse areas, which we was told was the best thing to do, and we've done it. So I don't think you can say it was ignored. Stop trying to scare the people.
Yeah. Councillor Cherry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll get straight to the question. Can the portfolio holder confirm whether his upcoming allocation policy review will remove the universal right of all adults who meet local connections, habitual residence tests and financial eligibility criteria to join the housing register and bid for council property?
Councillor Johnson.
As you know, Councillor Cherry, this is still out of consultation, so I can't confirm anything. But what I will say, and I'll repeat what I said in my report, that we are looking to have ourselves an allocations policy that is thorough, tailored and fit for purpose. But until that consultation is finished, I can't answer those questions.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I understand that social cleansing is the policy of this administration when it comes to housing. However, does the portfolio holder condone using threats of removing all support to pressure homeless families into accepting temporary accommodation as far away as Kettering?
Councillor Johnson.
Well, no, certainly wouldn't accept pressure being brought on anyone to accept it, but as I've said time and time again, we will look to rehouse here in Thurrock first. If that isn't possible, our duty is to rehouse and find, as I've said, longer term safe and suitable accommodation. Where that is, I'm afraid, is where it is.
Kettering.
you. Councillor Johnson, would you like to sum up now? You have 2 minutes. Thank you. Well, you may smile.
Yes. I think you only cut me off the last couple of words anyway. And that was going to be thank you for listening, and through you, Madam Mayor, I look forward to receiving any questions. So no, I don't sum up. Thank you.
So that's your summing up?
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you very much. We now move on to our second report, which is the report of Councillor Little, Cabinet Member for Children and Adult Social Care. The report can be found on pages 59 to 82. Councillor Little, can you present your report, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right, since my last report to full council on adult social services, the following has been successfully developed. First has been up a single point of contact between the council and its local health and partners. Shared Lives has been commissioned. We have 5 confirmed cases and 3 more in the pipeline. We now have over 50 micro-enterprises working in the care sector established in Thurrock. And on the 7th of November, within committee rooms 2 and 3, between 9:30 and 3:30, if members would like to go, you can see some of these micro-enterprise people, which are really interesting. We have opened Chichester Close, a new supported living scheme for people with learning disabilities. We have reviewed our pendant alarm telecare service and made it free for service users. We have expanded our local area coordination service. We have also established the first Thurrock Care Alliance, all health and social care partners in Thurrock working together. We have agreed to redevelop the Dilkswood site in South Ockenden as a new 21st century residential care facility. On the 21st of October, I had the pleasure of digging the first sod for 6 housing units on the site for care and support for young people with severe autism. And with following on with my children's, the performance has continued to improve. Our last inspection in 2016, when requires improvement. We had a positive focus visit from Ofsted and confirmation that the leadership team knows what needs to be done to get a good judgment. I have increased the number of in-house foster carers and placements for children so that more youngsters can be placed within Thurrock. The number of children with child protection plans has reduced from 290 to 200 because we're working really efficiently with parents and supporting more children to live at home. The number of children being taken into care has been reduced, bringing us more in line with our comparative authorities. We have launched the Science for Safety First practice model with a keynote speech by the Chief Social Worker, Isabella Trowler from England, and we have brought our adoption services back in-house, that we can now recruit more adoptive parents for children in Thurrock. We have joined the Eastern Region Adopted Alliance to share resources, training and increase the number of availability adopters for Thurrock children. So hopefully that's a quick summary of what my report is about, but obviously you can all read it for yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now move to the Chair of Children's Services, Councillor Ocknard. Would you like to speak?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Sulito for your report and for the highlight of your achievements. I just would like some clarification and also some assurance from you. Because one of your achievements, as mentioned on page 71 of the council report, is that you have reduced the number of children in care and those with child protection plan. So I would like you to give us examples of the approaches you've taken in reducing the number, as you said. And also, can you assure councillors that your strategies to achieve the reduction are safe and will not put any child at risk of harm?
Councillor Little.
Thank you, children on care plans. We have early intervention, as you know now, within the schools, and we're working hard to do that. What we are also doing is working very hard with families. And I think, you know, if I talk to any of the children, children don't want to be taken into care. Children want to be with their families. And what we need to do is actually work with those families to enable those children to be able to stay at home. I was a great supporter of NSPCC and almost 40 years, and I was really disheartened when we lost the facility down in Tilbury, the NSPCC house down there, where lots of parenting skills were shown and things like that. And, you know, I think that was rather a bad move on their part, but hey-ho. So what I'm saying to you is we're working hard with families and recognising problems and helping good parent practicing. So I think that was your question, was it not? Or did you have another one?
I mean, just reassuring, sorry, because obviously I understand that the pressure for the demand for, you know, the children, you know, for look after children is high, but you did say that your achievement has been that you've reduced it. And it's just like for us to be sure, you know, to be assured as corporate parents that we're not putting any child at risk, you know.
Yes, this wasn't a cost-cutting exercise by any means. Certainly children are the most important thing, not money. And that is why perhaps sometimes I've overspent on the budget, because children do come first. But yes, it's a different way of working. It has been looked at by our focused Ofsted, and they have recognised what we are doing, and I do believe, you know, it is a positive move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holloway, as Chair of HOS, would you like to pose a question? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Little. Ensuring we have the best workforce supporting our residents is key to having excellent adult social care services. As you know, it's very difficult to recruit to many of our places, and many areas are actually lacking. What are you doing to ensure we're recruiting the staff that we need to ensure that we have the best adult social care here in Thurrock?
Thank you. Sorry, was that for the children or for the adults? Because with the children, I can tell you that we have 14 new junior care workers coming on board first year graduates, and I'm really pleased about that. With the adult social care, as you know, obviously people do struggle because we have Amazon on our doorsteps, we have Lakeside, etc., etc. But we do lots and lots of reaching out into communities to, you know, get people to come and work and do care professional. And also I think it's important at schools as well to actually perhaps to promote the care profession for people, and I think it's really positive. And I think we are having a positive recruitment drive, as you see by, we do actually sift through all of them when they come through the doors and make sure they are acceptable, etc. But yeah, I think we are doing really well, but across Britain, sometimes people don't value the care service or want to actually look at that as a profession. So that is a bit of a problem. Thank you.
Councillor John Kemp, would you like to ask a question?
The report before us tonight states on page 65, further to my report last year, the provider market continues to be fragile. However, a great deal of work has been undertaken to increase capacity. The new contracts for domiciliary care have been in place since 2018 and are progressing very well. We're told that regular meetings are held with all providers to monitor stability and capacity, and a real and meaningful partnership approach is now well established. However, last week, the UK Home Care Association, the UK HCA, published a report called The Home Care Deficit 2018. That report tells us that Thurrock pays considerably less than the rate that the UK HCA says is necessary to comply with the national minimum wage, including care workers' travel, and the costs of running the service in a sustainable way. Their report states that the rates paid by Thurrock and other councils suggests that there is either a risk of non-compliance with the national minimum wage or the potential for providers to go out of business. Madam Mayor, can I ask the portfolio holder, why does Thurrock pay £16.25 instead of the £18 and a penny an hour recommended by the UK HCA? Under the new contracts, those in place since April 2018, now meet the UK HCA criteria.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Kent. Yes, we uplifted from when you were in power from 13.50 up to 16.25. As you know, we have gone out for the domiciliary care packages, and we have gone to several providers rather than put all our eggs in one basket. Now, the fact is that the companies that came along to actually apply for the contracts, there were several of them. Now, that leads me to believe that what we are paying is acceptable by them. Otherwise, we wouldn't have people coming along to us and saying, hey, we'd like your contracts. So, you know, what should I do? At the moment, I do think it is in the right place, but we could go to overview and scrutiny, which I believe they would share, and we could ask, do you think it is better to pay more? But at the moment, the contract state is 16.25, and that has been acceptable by the companies.
Councillor Spillman.
Thank you for the report. You've got an unenviable amount of work. It's two of the hardest portfolios you've had. So you've taken on a challenge, and I appreciate it. I don't think it's going to turn out how you want it to be. But regarding concerns that a lot of people have had in this chamber, and you've been very public recently, does the portfolio holder believe or know of any children that have come to serious harm or been placed at risk of serious harm as a result of negligence within the children's services department?
Thank you for recognising all the hard work I've done. But anyway, answer to your question, no.
Councillor Cherry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is the portfolio holder concerned at all that it has been suggested that the Children's Services Department believe are above democratic scrutiny?
Sorry, we just actually offered the post of chairing the Committee of Overview and Scrutiny, but none of the independent members wished to take it. And actually, Overview and Scrutiny is a good place to actually go, to actually look at what you're doing and what I am or I'm not doing. And, you know, I would have welcomed more of you on that particular committee. Thank you.
Councillor Worrell, you have under a minute to ask your question, please.
I'll be quick then. What are you doing to ensure that young people leaving the care system have access to a home of their own and not just shared accommodation? And secondly, ensuring that young people who go to university have somewhere to return to after graduation so that their qualifications and experiences comes back to Thurrock.
Councillor Little, it is time for you to sum up now. You may wish to incorporate that within your summing up. Entirely up to you.
Well, firstly, thank you for your question, Councillor Worrell. But actually, that part of it actually comes under Councillor Howden. But we do actually talk about this quite a lot, and I am sorry, yeah, so it does fall under his. Regarding my summing up, what I did want to really say was I do keep my eye on the ball, and it's amazing. I don't get many complaints or actual questions coming through from any councillor in the chamber, because if I did, then I could see if anything was going wrong as well. And you know, you're all corporate parents, and I would really like for you, one, to know all the children I've got out there, and two, to be more supportive and come along to their events and come and talk to them and come and see them. What I wanted also to say is I wanted to thank all my hard-working officers who really work hard. I wanted to say a special thanks to all our foster carers in Thurrock, and I wanted to actually say a big thank you to my two amazing directors that I have, who work so hard. And you know, I'm not the easiest person to work with because I do go a little bit over the top sometimes. I also wanted to announce, and I've just lost my bit of paper, so I want to tell you the right time, that we've got the Give a Gift tree again, operating in Lakeside again this year. And I will tell you, it is
in November, first week in December. If you could all go along and take a start, I'd really appreciate it. It's on the first floor up near the House of Fraser next to the HSBC, and it would be really great for any of you, one, to offer your time to go and help with a gift, but even more helpful to go and take a star. And if any of you are wondering which stars to take, I'd really appreciate teenage boys. Believe it or not, there always seem to be the stars that are left. So if any of you, could go and take a star and buy one for them, that would be brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much. Right on time. Thank you very much, Councillor Little. We now move on to question time. We have up to 30 minutes for this item, so I will ask members to be brief with both their questions and answers so that we can get as many of the questions in as possible. We've got 3 questions to the leader and 6 questions to cabinet members. Questions can be found on pages 83 and 84 of the agenda. No questions have been rejected. So can I first of all ask that Councillor John Kemp poses question to the leader, Councillor Gledhill, please.
Crime in Thurrock is on the rise. Can the leader give us the year-on-year increases in sexual offences, robbery and crimes against the person?
Councillor Gledhill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kent, for your question. Summary of this data is provided to the Cleaner, Greener, Safer Open and Scrutiny Committee on the 4th of October 2018. This showed that between 2016-17 and 17-18, reported instances of sexual offences increased by 72, robbery by 61 reported offences, and violence against a person up by 674 offences. It also showed reported burglaries down, criminal damage down, racial and religious aggravating offences down. The following information is provided for 18-19 so far. It's Essex Police's provisional data, and it's for the 6 months from April 18 to September 18, and it's comparable to the same period in 2017. So far in that comparison period, there's been no change compared to the previous year for sexual offences, 159 offences in the 6-month period, whereas robbery of personal property has decreased by 3.2%. Before I get on to the next one, there has been a change in the National Crime Recording Standards in 2018. So, for example, stalking and harassment are now recorded as separate offences, even if one or more substantive offence was disclosed at the same time. So now all offences on each occasion are recorded, not just the most serious. This was following Home Office guidance to all forces and is particularly prevalent in domestic violence situations. Along with all the rest of Essex, Thurrock has seen an increase in the numbers of recorded harassment offences, which are also included in the now violence against the person stats. So crime against the person is now recorded as violence against the person, and an additional 712 incidents in the first 6 months have been recorded. But as per my explanation, the police are not comparing like for like. This increase is in line with the national trend and along with Essex. A representative comparison will be made available at the 12-month point once those changes have been embedded. But equally, worthy of note, there is an 18.6% reduction in burglary, equating to 250 less victims in April, since April, as well as a reduction in theft from vehicle, theft from pedal cycles, shopping and other thefts. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor John Kemp, do you wish to pose a supplementary?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. I mean, it's clear that crime is on the rise. If we just look, for example, at possession of weapons, up by 45% last year alone. We know that Essex Police have lost 600 officers since 2010. They've lost 300 PCSOs since 2010. And in Thurrock, we've lost 3 police station front desks. We know there was nothing at all in the budget this week for general policing. Will the leader agree that it's time that we launched as a council a concerted campaign to make a strong case to government to give us the resources we need across Essex to keep our streets safe?
Councillor Gledhill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kent, for your quite fantastic question. Just need to clarify though, since last week I was speaking to the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, the number of police officers in Essex has now risen above 3,000, which is the first time since, I believe, 2016, which is worthy of note. It's been very clear that keeping open the front desk in a police station doesn't actually solve crimes or prevent crimes. What it does do is take money away from frontline policing. So I do support the Police and Fire Crime Commissioner in what he's done so far. But equally, I support exactly what you're saying there, Councillor Ken. It is right that we lobby, not just as Thurrock, but right across Essex, and I will take this to my fellow Essex leaders when we next meet. It was also worth remembering in the budget that the Chancellor did say that the police funding announcement, which will be in December, will also include the Home Secretary saying there will be a review of the police spending power. But I do agree with you, and it's a good suggestion, and we'll be taking it forward.
Councillor John Kent, do you wish to pose a second supplementary? Thank you very much. Moving on to question 2. Councillor John Kent, can you please read out the question?
Madam Mayor, will the Leader of the Council reaffirm his opposition to the proposed new Lower Thames crossing and set out how he has made our case to colleagues on Opportunity South Essex and the South East Local Enterprise Partnership?
Councillor Gledhill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kent. As said in my statement earlier, I and this Council remain opposed to any new crossing in Thurrock. Following the recent start of consultation on the proposed Lower Thames crossing, I have already made clear my disgust and the unacceptable lack of engagement and information from Highways England. Despite requests from the Lower Thames Crossing Task Force, meetings with myself along with other group leaders, and meetings with officers, they have failed to supply sufficient information in good time to allow us to properly prepare and provide guidance to residents or fully inform our other partners. However, it's not just about process. I've committed to providing the necessary funding to proceed to apply for a leave for a judicial review, which hopefully will all be backed later on. And we will continue to scrutinise the action of Highways England, continue to obtain legal opinion and continue to stand ready to take legal action. I've made it clear our stance at meetings of not just OSA and SELEP, but also at meetings of Essex leaders, ASLA and indeed the Chair of London Councils and at the Thames Estuary Commission. I've also written to businesses in Thurrock and formal letters to members of ASLA, OSC and SELEP will be sent later this week outlining outline that we remain opposed to the proposed crossing and hopefully the acceptance this evening that we will go forward for a JR. This has led This all led to Thurrock Business Board changing their stance on the crossing, and they now stand opposed to the proposals, and some leaders of other South Essex councils will also be making clear their objections. As we further understand the detail of the scheme, Highways England have changed yet again. I will continue to make the case wherever necessary with the updated information as we go forward.
Councillor Kent, do you wish to pose a supplementary question?
Madam Mayor, that's okay as far as it goes. Councillor Gledhill at the end there said we'll continue to make the case wherever is necessary. But I took the opportunity just to look at the minutes and attendance at SELEP over the last year or so. The Strategic Board met on the 15th of December last year. Councillor Gledhill wasn't there. On the 16th of March this year, Councillor Gledhill wasn't there. On the 29th of June this year, Councillor Gledhill wasn't there. On the 28th of September this year, Councillor Gledhill wasn't there. For the Accountability Board, it's met 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times this year. The minutes show that Councillor Gledhill has been there twice. Madam Mayor, can I just ask, why is Councillor Gledhill not attending these vital meetings with our partners where we have the opportunity to make a strong case for Thurrock?
Councillor Gledhill.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kent, for your question. Let me make it clear, as with most things in life, you will find that it's quality over quantity. Jesus Christ. Wait for where I'm going with this one. I have made very clear at these boards, SELEP Strategic Board on the 23rd September 16 opposed the option of a route running directly through Thurrock. SELEP Strategic Board meeting on 9th of December 2016. I made Thurrock's opposition to the Lower Thames Crossing consultation options very clear at the SELEP meeting board on the 3rd of March 2017. Twice. Number one, because they forgot to mention the fact that I was in attendance at the previous one, or indeed I'd mentioned it. I advised the board that we still oppose the building of a Lower Thames Crossing and the locations currently defined by the government agency involved, Highways England. And at SELEP Strategic Board meeting on the 22nd of September 2017, I once again stated that Thurrock remains opposed to the Lower Thames Crossing. As mentioned, I've also made this very clear at meetings of Essex leaders, at ASLA and with one-to-one meetings with other council leaders. And as mentioned, the Thurrock Business Board have now changed their thoughts in relation to what's their stance in relation to the Lower Thames Crossing. And I also took the opportunity, John, to go through some of the minutes from the previous meetings. And as I said right at the start, it is about quality over quantity. So I'm checking the minutes since 2012, it's 2016 when you were in attendance. Despite the Lower Thames Crossing being mentioned at 6 meetings, you only ever mentioned it once. And I will go further than that. At the last Select meeting, one of the members said, we always hear Thurrock stance on the Lower Thames Crossing at these meetings and other meetings from Rob, but I cannot remember once when it was mentioned by John Kent, the previous leader. Had he done so, our view may have been different.
Councillor Kent, do you wish to pose a second supplementary question?
Madam Mayor, when I was the representative on Select, Select's priorities did not include the building of a new Lower Thames Crossing. Select's transport priorities were the widening of the A13, the installation of free-flow tolling of the crossing. It's only since I haven't been there that they managed to put the Lower Thames Crossing as one of their transport priorities. Madam Mayor, the fact is that Councillor Gledhill has taken the stance of the empty chair when it comes to representing Thurrock at these crucial meetings for the past year, and frankly it's just not good enough. We need it to be Rob centre stage, not what we've got now, which appears to be sideshow Bob.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, a bit like Select, we were actually waiting for them to be mentioned at the Lower Thames Crossing. I was actually waiting for a question. You say it wasn't their priorities, John, but as I said, there were 6 meetings in which it was mentioned, and it's been minuted that it was mentioned. Total silence. Doesn't matter if a chair is occupied or filled. It's what actually happens when you're there and you make it happen, John. So I have made a difference, and the difference is that the business board, John, you can sit there and deny it all the time, or you could just be silent and allow me to finish. But as I said, John, the business board have now changed their stance. Other local authority leaders have come to me and said, actually, Rob, from what you've said, we're going to be making clear opposition. You can sit there and deny it, John. I'm going on the facts, the ones that are printed in the minutes that you quite rightly brought up.
Moving on, Councillor McPherson, can you please read out your question on page 83 of the agenda?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Having seen the good news about the C-17 gang members' injunction that Essex Police have secured, can the leader outline how Thurrock Council assisted in this and what benefits it will bring to the residents of Trafford 100?
Councillor Gledhill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McPherson. As portfolio holder for antisocial behaviour and public protection, through the Community Safety Partnership, we've been engaging with Essex Police and partners to address the issues created by this gang and the impact it's been having on our residents. I committed additional funding to Essex Police Operation Raptor team, which has enabled them to carry out, for example, an extra 186 hours of additional proactive policing in 1 month alone to target this cohort and obtain the evidence required for the injunction. Along with the chair of the Community Safety Partnership, the Youth Offending Services Manager, I submitted the community impact statements to the courts outlining why it was vital to our residents for this injunction to be granted. Essex Police have worked closely with our Youth Offending Service, who now manage a violent cohort of offenders. Our Children's Services are dealing with the increase in exploitation and missing persons, many of which are linked to the activities of this criminal gang C-17. Our antisocial behaviour housing officers have supported through joint patrols and have been identifying perpetrators for the police. And we've funded additional CCTV, which is monitored 24/7 by our CCTV team, and has been used to support evidence gathering in relation to the injunction and now to monitoring the support and enforcement. Our adult social care team has worked with support the victims of cuckooing, which has led to links to C-17, and our trading standards teams are working with support businesses and combat the sale of knives across the borough. Chafford 100, along with other areas of Thurrock, will benefit from this wide restriction within the injunction, which include non-association with other members of C17 gang. This means they cannot be anywhere as a collective group. Banning of making dual music videos, which are then publicly available through YouTube. Wearing of hoodies or face coverings in public, and being in the company of girls under 16. They found in breach of any of these conditions, anywhere in the borough, they will be subject to arrest. Conditions may be extended to disbursement from other areas if this is evidence and that evidence is gained. This will not only help reduce crime, but it's getting the message out that gang life in Thurrock does not pay.
Councillor McPherson, do you wish to pose a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A lot of work goes on behind the doors that we don't know about, and at the end of the day, we just see the injunction. So a huge thank you to both yourself and officers as well as the police for getting this enforced. But obviously this injunction is only effective if it can be enforced. Can you outline what is being done in that respect, please?
Councillor Dedew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor McPherson, for your supplementary question. As I mentioned in my opening statement, the actions of Essex Police in this are absolutely fantastic and second to none. This has now led to an additional gang member being included in the injunction. But yeah, as you said, this is about whether or not it's actually enforced. It is being robustly enforced, and I shall give you some examples of arrests for the breaches that have already happened. The leader of this gang was arrested on Monday the 1st of October for breaching the order. He was found wearing a hoodie, carrying a knife, cannabis, and 2 mobile phones which were not registered with the police. He appeared at Basel Magistrates Court and was given a 28-day suspended sentence. 17-year-old boy from Grays was arrested in Grays on Thursday the 18th for suspicion of breaching the order. He appeared at Chelmsford Magistrates Court the next day, where he denied the breach and will return to court later this month. Another 17-year-old boy from Grays was arrested on Thursday the 19th for breaching the order for wearing a hoodie. He admitted the breach but was not made subject of any sentence. He was further arrested on Saturday, October the 21st, for breaching the order by riding a pedal cycle in Grays. He admitted the breach and is awaiting sentencing. The leader of the gang was again arrested on Monday this week and was bailed to appear in court in November. I can't mention too much from that because it's an ongoing case. But we need to remember these injunctions had a positive effect, and this is from the police. Talking to town staff at Grace Town Centre businesses. My staff and customers were very intimidated and scared, witnessing drug deals and smelling cannabis every day. Since this injunction and the following action, the drug dealers have all but disappeared and staff are no longer afraid to leave work at night. Another has added, people were afraid to come into my shop and walk past them. They would regularly threaten my staff and make them feel intimidated about coming to work. Since all of this action, my staff actually enjoy coming to work. Essex Police Operation Raptor will continue to enforce these injunctions through high visibility patrols and responding to the increased intelligence being provided by the public. And I would urge every member of the public to go onto the Essex Police website, get the pictures of these individuals and memorise them. We are putting them up in council offices and wherever we can. The council will obviously continue to take preventive measures to safeguard vulnerable people from this criminal gang. And I need to say that all these criminal gangs have been given the opportunity to work with the council to get them out of gang life. So it's not just about the injunction being enforced, about us actually trying to draw them away from that and put them back on the straight and narrow.
Councillor McPherson, do you wish to pose a second supplementary?
It's amazing the work that's going on. Can you tell us any other initiatives that the council is working and helping Essex Police with at the moment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor McPherson. Yeah, there are a number. I've had to say this to other elected members. Obviously, it's not my role or the council officer's role to take action for direct criminal activities such as drug dealing. That's solely down to the police. But we are helping the police in whichever way we can to not only act against this particular gang, but others that are causing antisocial behaviour. I'm not going to go into all of them. I can't go into all of them. Some of them for operational security reasons. But for example, canisters of special spray to tag motorcycles, quad bikes, to identify and lace when it's safe to do so. This has led to 46% reduction in reports of the associated crimes. Specialist CCTV cameras, I'm not going to say what site, improving CCTV coverage that the police can call to gather evidence, increase officer presence in antisocial hotspots to improve residents' confidence and the ability to report crimes to the police. Without those reports, of course, the police can't target their resources. And of course, we're looking to additionally fund 8 extra full-time police officers, not PCSOs, to provide a uniform presence in the areas where crime and antisocial behaviour has been causing problems for our residents. Now, most of this has been possible for the good financial stewardship of this council from the one-off services we've managed so far. This means that all this work is done is to improve the safety of our residents hasn't come from the taxpayer's pocket, but as a result of good investment strategy, and long may that be the case in Thurrock.
We now have 10 minutes for the rest of the questions. I'm moving on now to Councillor Lynwell. Can you please read out your question as it's on page 83 of the agenda?
Thank you. What is the importance of parks and improving our open spaces for residents to enjoy?
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor, for your question. Good evening too. Parks and open spaces play a vital role within Thurrock. Obviously, they're used by everyone really within Thurrock, from the elderly residents using it for the social care purposes, to the children of Thurrock using it for enjoyment of sport, and to the people just wanting to walk their dogs or just have a leisurely walk around the parks and open spaces. Including drops. Thank you for your remarks, Councillor Sherry. You may want to refer to Councillor Glethel's comments a moment ago about what we're doing with that.
Can we please speak to the business? Thank you.
As part of the administration's policies in regards to clean it, cut it, fill it, obviously we wanted to ensure that not only were our parks and open spaces clean and tidy, but also they were maintained and improved. So in July 2017, a report went to the Clean and Greener Overview Scrutiny Committee, outlining the plans which we were going to take over a 3-year period of time. 1.25 million plus worth of investment, but first of all happening a review, looking at all the important areas such as consultations with the residents, the health data of those areas, operational requirements, the type of equipment already within those parks and open spaces, the physical activity levels around those areas, and also the sort of equipment which may well be needed within those areas in order for more people to use it, such as sensory equipment. And that stuff is already ongoing. I had the privilege in summertime of a meeting with residents in AD Rec who are taking a keen interest in trying to get that park and open space improved. They've got some real good plans they want to bring forward to the council, which I do ask any residential group who want to get involved in a local space to come forward to the council, because we're very much willing to listen to your ideas. We want to work with you, not against you. Excuse me. And I know that there's been good work that's gone on there with the maintenance of that equipment recently as well, which is really good news. So yes, Madam Mayor, our parks and open spaces play a vital role to the residents of this borough, and I'm proud that this administration is also investing in them.
Councillor Warren, would you like to pose a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. So, of course, I love our parks, you know, just to name but a few. We've got Grays Beach, you know, the great work that's done there, Hardy Park, you know what they're doing over there. Recently, we've got the work that's going on in the Daisy Field with them raising money. But tonight, I want to talk about our park in Grays, and that's the Elm Park, where residents are faced with losing a well-used and open space. As Cabinet Member for overall responsibility for parks, and I direct it at you and not Councillor Halden because it is about losing the facility, can you assure us in the Chamber that residents and councillors will be fully consulted on any possible closure of their park, as was announced 3 months ago? And secondly, can you assure us that every other location will be fully investigated before any decision is made, and this again will form part of the initial consultation?
Councillor Watkins.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I know obviously she's directing the question, so she has quite rude. Apologies, Councillor Worrell. The councillors directing the question to me. I will ask if you will wait to Councillor Halden's question in a moment, and the answers he will be given. I can say though that in any circumstance whereby a park or open space within the borough is needed to be used for something else, such as a school, I mean, obviously we do support the opening of new schools across the borough. We know how important it is that we give every kid the opportunity within Thurrock to kickstart their life, and they require good and outstanding schools to do that. And it's great to see that we as a council are investing in those new schools. And in those moments, obviously the right consultations and events will go on with that to ensure but parks and open space facilities can obviously be used somewhere else where necessary, and the work can go on with other parks and open spaces around the area. But in regards to individual parks, I will pass this over to Councillor Holden in the following question. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Worrell, do you wish to
Yeah, I
have a
certainly do. And why I brought it here is because in the cabinet meeting that I attended, where this was announced, Councillor Watkins, you didn't make a peep of a noise in opposition to giving up a park. You know, this is an open space, this is a park. I'm not against the need for schools, but I have not seen one real piece of evidence that once we've got the expansion of the William Edwards site, that we actually do need this school. And I'm not sure that we have done enough consultation to just write off one of our parks. And again, we haven't gone out to consultation, and last month we had a motion in here where you apologised for not consulting, and it's in the minutes. Councillor Gledhill agreed that everything would be consulted, and it's still 3 months later we haven't had the consultation start. 3 months, Madam Mayor, and councillors, if there is a consultation, we as councillors have not been advised that there is going to be one. So we're asking, do not start it without us.
Councillor Watkins.
Well, Madam Mayor, there was no question within that as far as I can see. It was just a long statement. I'll refer again to the question coming up shortly by Councillor Holden.
We're going to move on to the next question. Councillor Jeffries, can you please read out your question? It's found on page 83.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the portfolio holder for education and health outline what is being done to deliver more school places in Thurrock, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jeffries, for your question. This evening I can announce some exciting news regarding new school building in Thurrock, news that balances the need to deliver high quality school places and preserve and enhance sporting and open spaces. As members will know, between capital monies that the council holds and the monies that we work with our MATs to win via the free school delivery programme, we are currently investing £70 million to deliver 3,500 new good school places and more modern facilities across this borough. As council will know, council minus Councillor Worrell apparently, we have 1,002 few school places in Grays by 2021. So a statement that she's not quite sure she needs a school.
We don't need our park on.
Can we please?
You don't need children in the street, Councillor. As members will know, we are currently delivering 3 brand new free schools, the Treetops 2 Special Needs School and 2 Grays-based secondary schools to address this looming crisis. For all 3 sites, we had to identify council land because for every penny of money that the EFSA do not spend on land can be invested in our children's education. The land disposal for Treetops 2, adjacent to the current Treetops 2, has been approved by myself and heads of terms have been signed by the EFSA. Planning approval is on course and our special needs school, £20 million investment will duly be delivered. The land for William Edwards 2, the Orsett Heath Academy, is the council land next to the Thurrock Rugby Club but not the club itself. There has been some concerns regarding the rugby club losing some space from the council that they sometimes use. The council is satisfied that this outstanding rated specialist sports academy will be able to forge a new great future working in partnership with the rugby club as outlined by the letter signed by the rugby club president and the school CEO. As such, any planning application will ensure that ability to access community and sport facilities on this site will be cemented. And on this basis, the council has agreed heads of terms with the EFSA to proceed. Finally, the land offered for the St Clair's 2 school, the Thames Park Secondary, is the council open space on Elm Road, next to Thameside Primary. There has been a great deal of concern regarding this site, but we forged forward because if we had not provided a council-owned site, the EFSA would not have progressed plans for the new school on the basis that we would be the delay. The EFSA plan has now gone to the next stage, with the council offering our full commitment for disposal of land below market value. The EFSA have now decided that they would rather procure a different site for a range of reasons. As such, council officers forcefully made the argument with the EFSA that because we offered the land in good faith and the EFSA had chosen they would like an alternative piece of land, the cost must be borne with the EFSA and the project cannot be put at risk. The council has done what we were prepared to do and prepared to make a difficult decision to dispose of open land to prevent the looming placement crisis in Grace. The EFSA have accepted this argument, we have won this fight, and they will invest additional monies to acquire a private site. As such, in consultation with Councillor Cockshaw, I have rescinded the instruction to dispose of this site. While I know this is the position many people hope for, this is a position that can only be arrived at by forging past NIMBY pressure from the start and ensuring that we offered land available. If we did not, the EFSA simply would have come back to us, as they have with countless other authorities in the country, and said that we are land banking and they cannot proceed on this basis. That is not what we have done, and this is a good outcome. Madam Mayor, as I have already said, November Cabinet will see a release of additional funds for temporary accommodation where it is needed to ensure that we deliver our new free schools. I will be clear, the money that we release will be in a robust amount to reassure people these schools will be delivered and will comply with our policy that temporary accommodation will not simply be portable cabins, but rather will be a lasting legacy for sports and education provision.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howden. That brings us to the end of our question time. The 30 minutes is finished. I would now go through the rest of the questions and ask the people asking the questions if they would like those questions to have a written response or if they would like the questions to form. So the next one is carried over here. Councillor Anderson.
Carry on, Reece, please.
Councillor Rigby.
Please carry over.
Councillor Ochenardi.
Have it carried over to the next meeting, please.
And Councillor John Kemp.
I'll withdraw it.
Thank you very much. We now move to item 13 on the agenda. Does any member from an outside body have a report to present? Captain Gerard Price. Councillor Gerard Price.
Well, and another promotion. I recently attended the Regional Flood Defence Committee at Essex County Council. Happy to announce that the Flood Defence Committee agreed to renew the flood defence gates at Grays and Purfleet, also to look at the pumping station at World's End, to have that renewed as well, and also there are ongoing discussions with our officers regarding the new barrier at Purfleet.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gerard Rice. Would anybody else like to present a report? Councillor Ritson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hopefully, I'm just speaking on behalf of the Crime and Fire Panel. Hopefully the collaboration between the police and the fire service will go from strength to strength. We are still in the early stages, but we are working together as a panel. The special constables have grown from 360 to 427. It is now at its largest since 2014. There will be 150 new officers in Essex by the end of 2019. And as the leader has said, we have gone over the 3,000 mark for officers. The 101 service is still being looked at because, as many of you in this chamber know, it still needs to be better than it is. Work is still ongoing. Many aspects of what the police do all over the country is brilliant. There just needs to be more PR in letting the general public know what is going on. We need to strengthen the relationship between the police and the wider community. The Community Safety Partnership works closely with the police and we want that to continue. We want to see more visible community policing because that is what our residents want and need as the public perception of what matters. A new post has been allocated to expand locally with the schools in Chelmsford. Hopefully this will move to take place in Thurrock. The fire service is doing a brilliant job. 2017 to 2018 saw a decrease in 217 incidents. Also a big improvement to response times. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? No, thank you. We now move on to item 14, minutes of committees. These are listed on the agenda contents page. Does any member wish to speak on this item? No? Thank you very much. We now move on to item 15, motions update report, which can be found on pages 85 to 87. Does any member wish to speak on this report? No? Thank you very much. We now move on to item 16. We have 4 motions that have been submitted for debate this evening. 1 motion has been rejected by the monitoring officer. The first item, the proposer has 5 minutes allocated to speak on his or her motion. And Councillor Howden, do you wish to propose and then speak to your motion as printed on page 89 of the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Full Council hasn't met since July, and in that period of time, I've had a great deal of fun crisscrossing various schools and colleges on GCSE and A-levels results day to see some of the achievements that our schools have achieved in partnership with the Council. It's a really remarkable picture with results, standards and outcomes sharply on the way up. Thurrock is serving children at every stage of life. For our youngest in nursery school, 100% of our early year setting are rated good or best by Ofsted. It's only 94% nationally. That's Thurrock outpacing the rest of the nation to the tune of 6%, making sure that Thurrock children have more quality early years places than any other child in any other borough. For our primary school age children, at the end of Key Stage 2, the disadvantaged attainment gap has reduced again, a 3-year downward trend from 22% down to 16%. So that is the gap from children on free school meals compared to children not on free school meals. The disadvantaged attainment gap getting smaller, building a more equal society for our children in the prime of their early education. For our secondary school children, 89% of Thurrock children go to a school that is good or outstanding. With about 88% nationally, we can say, quite honestly, with all due respect to our boroughs, Thurrock is simply better than the north. More children in Thurrock. If you live in Thurrock, you are more likely to go to a good or outstanding school than if you're a child who lives anywhere else in the country. Finally, for our A-level students, 100% of students in Thurrock schools achieved at least 1 A-level pass this year, which is quite an amazing increase considering last year it was already an amazing 96.4%. There are too many brilliant achievements to name them all, but we should sing out special praise for Rose Convent, Paris Academy, Chapel 100 and St Clair's, who all achieved significantly higher, not just on GCSE results, even on a year when GCSE marking criteria became more difficult, but on issues like Progress 8, where we measure the difference between Year 7 and Year 11 and how much progress an individual child has made. It's not just about ensuring that children leave school with great results, it's about ensuring that every child leaves school having done and achieved the best to their ability, which clearly those schools are doing. Harder exams, but better results. And it isn't just about sustained success, it's about leading improvements. For example, following the Ortu Trust's massive success in turning Corrie Primary around and getting them out of special measures in record time and turning them into one of our strongest primary schools, they took on the failing Hasselbrook School, where the Maths and English combined level 4 results are up by 14% since 2007, and the level 5 is up by 18% since 2017. Everyone is on this improvement journey. Madam Mayor, this is a remarkable picture, and we should congratulate our schools, our teachers, our governors, our parents, and of course the students sitting these exams. And of course, we can always do better. And there are things we need to do to make sure this borough keeps this roller coaster going. The £70 million that we're investing to deliver 3,500 new school places, that's going to require tough decisions. We've heard one of those decisions tonight, a tough decision that hasn't been necessitated by the skillful and forceful negotiations that our officers have undertaken with the EFSA, but it doesn't mean there will not be other difficult decisions down the line. And it also means that the reform work to children's centres and other such provision must continue. For example, when we reformed children's centres under the auspices of fewer buildings, better services, there was an awful lot of allegations from the Labour group that we were going to be producing a weaker service. We have reformed children's centres, we have saved millions from the system, and guess what? The amount of children registered with those centres, up 6%. The amount of engagements with families in those centres, gone from 31,000 up to 45,000. The amount of children having sessions delivered for them directly in the home, up by 34%. And the amount of children, the amount of parents and carers who have declared that they believe their children's lives have been positively impacted by our children's centres in 2017, an astonishing 89%. That was a difficult reform to get through and a necessary one, and it is working. Madam Mayor, these are amazing results, and they are the results of our schools, our councils, our social workers and our early year settings doing the hard yards. This is a great backdrop, and we must keep going.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded? Councillor Hewling, would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. I have received an amendment to this motion from Councillor Duffin, and this has been tabled. You will see it on your desks. Is this amendment seconded? Councillor Spillman?
Yes.
Seconded. Thank you very much. Councillor Duffin, you have 3 minutes to speak to your amendment.
I won't need that long. Basically, I agree with the motion, and our students and people involved in the borough are doing a fantastic job at our schools. But it's important to notice what backdrop they're having to actively fight against to achieve those results. And an 8% cut per pupil since 2010 is disastrous. It's not a small cut. That is a massive, massive cut. And it was interesting when you were very keen to praise everything your government does. That list of people you thanked for helping the students in our borough, your government was missing off that list. And I wonder, why do you miss them? Because you're so keen to praise them for everything else. Is it because you accept this 8% cut is brutal and not in the best interests of our students? So while I'm happy with the initial motion to support and thank our students for the hard work they've put in, as well as our teachers and everyone involved, it's important to have a balanced motion that understands they're doing this against very difficult circumstances, that this government is actively worsening our situation in this borough.
Councillor Spillman, you're the seconder of the motion. Would you like to reserve your right to speak or speak now?
I'll speak now.
You have 3 minutes.
I read this motion, I thought, what a wonderful motion. We're going to congratulate and celebrate the work of all the educational staff in this borough. And then I realised that it was just going to turn into the James Howard show, as always.
It might never be the Luke show.
You never know. In terms of the context, and this is what, I mean, we saw the budget of it, you know, those little extras that your Chancellor proposed. We saw, there was an experienced member of, an experienced teacher who said, and described what it's like being a teacher under, you know, since 2010, and what this budget meant for him. And he said, it's like having your house burgled and then they return your kettle. That's what the education staff think about it.
Obviously that person's never been
Karen.
Does any other member wish to speak on either the substantive motion or the amendment?
Can I not speak on the amendment?
Councillor Cockshaw.
Yeah, I think we've got this amendment is a bit weird because if there was a problem and the results weren't going the right way, like we're just looking at this, just my argument about policing numbers against crime, I think is wrong. I think there's people can actually see something like that. I can't believe that that's correct, but there's a legitimate argument there that the opposition can make. This, you can't, I don't know why, if you've got rising experiences in schools, rising satisfaction, rising exam results, rising better improvements from year 7 to year when they leave at 18, then I can't see where you're going. And let's be honest, this is the largest amount of money ever spent nationally by this government.
Would anybody else like to speak?
Not true.
Excuse me, can we come through the chair, please?
Apologies.
Councillor Head, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, right, let's get back to the original motion first. I think we absolutely need to pay record to not only staff and parents, but also the students as well, who are making wonderful things happen for them and creating an absolutely vibrant future. Now, we've quoted the IFS, we've had a lot of percentages tonight. I actually wonder whether, some members of the Thurrock Independent Party actually walked through a school any time recently. Because let me tell you something. As a father of a nearly 8-year-old who happens to attend a school in this borough, which is only getting better and better, the schools today are better equipped than what anything we ever had back in my day when I was educated in this borough back in the mid-90s. Without a shout of doubt. I don't know what world you're living in, because you can't be walking through these schools seeing the technology, the outreach, the diverse types of education, the subjects that they're learning. I mean, honestly, some of the spellings that Lucy brings home, I struggle with it.
So why teach them around so long?
It's, morale is a measure of success. I think we need to get back to the point. I think Councillor Coxall summed it up perfectly. Record investment into an education sector. Record investment. Walk through a school, get off the internet in whatever office you work in, get into a school, go and see what's happening to our students, what's there, and you'll see what education is bringing in this borough.
Please bring order back to this meeting.
Can I just ask for a clarification on the standing orders?
Could I ask for a clarification? Please go ahead.
How is record investment an 8% cut per student? Because someone needs to go back to maths 5.
That's actually a question rather than clarification. We're moving down the line. The next person is Councillor John Kemp. Can we please keep this this meeting civilised and to the point? Please make the point loudly and clearly, but not arguing across the chamber. I'm sure members in the gallery would much rather have a civilised debate. Councillor John Kemp.
I want to start with the positive. I've been in practically every school in this borough, and I've seen fantastic work being carried out by teachers, by support staff. I've seen pupils that have been well engaged and pupils that are working hard. And we have seen a marked increase in the standard of attainment in education in this borough over the last decade. I remember when I became leader of the council, fewer than a third of our youngest children were in primary schools that were rated as being good or outstanding by Ofsted. By the time I left, that was over 90%. I am really proud of that, and that's something that we really should not endanger and we shouldn't let drop. I think it's fair to say that there were some fantastic results, but results were mixed. If you look at the Progress 8 measure, we see that 2 schools were well above average, 2 schools were average, 3 schools were below average, and 3 schools were well below average. And I didn't want to go into that because I think that we should be as positive as we can with this. We've heard from the independent group of the 8% cut, which is true. There is not a school in Thurrock that hasn't seen its funding cut in the period from 2015 to 2020. There's a combined cut of £5.6 million, that's £230 per pupil on average in Thurrock. It is also true, though, that there is more investment going into schools than ever before. That's simply because there are more children in school than ever before. Madam Mayor, that's only counting. That's all that is. And then we come to the budget, which was the hope for some increase in funding for schools to start to undo some of the damage of the past 8 years. People were hoping for real hope in the budget, but of course they were let down. And worse, frankly, was the condescending attitude of the Chancellor, who did talk of a small amount of money for schools to buy the little extras that they need. Madam Mayor, schools don't need little extras. They need teachers, they need teaching assistants, they need textbooks and exercise books. They need the end of Tory austerity that has seen billions come from school budgets in this country. And the condescending attitude proves that the well-off Tories just don't have a clue what damage their 8 years of austerity has had on our schools and on our children.
Councillor Rockledge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your words in trying to bring this meeting back to order. This is a wonderful motion from Councillor Howden. It really was. I thought, yeah, this would be one of these really nice. Let's thank everybody for actually moving forward in certain circumstances. But no, within a couple of minutes, politics and personal reasons, ugly hair. And that really is quite shocking, especially from a group that used to say we will never do the politics of personal. So, what are we talking about here? What we're talking about in this amendment, is something about the spend on a service being an indicator of success or an outcome. It shouldn't be. It's the outcomes of what these children have done, what our fantastic teaching staff have done, what our council staff have done. And that's what really should be applauded. We shouldn't be turning this into some political football just to score points. That really does demean the children. Worse than even... Sorry, Madam Mayor, shall I sit down and allow another councillor to speak? Or...
Carry on,
Thank you very much, Sorry, Councillor Rice. I'm sorry, but no, I'm not going to support this amendment. It is just making a political football and making a political statement just because we can. We've heard earlier that the Leader of the Opposition thought that it was somewhat condescending of the Chancellor to say about the little school things. Well, I'm sorry, this is even worse. This is undermining all the hard work, as I say, done by children, done by teaching staff, and done by this council. Not get my support.
I'm going to take one more, Councillor Redsell, and then we're going to move on to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to speak. I would like to see some positive over the other side rather than keep going at what they're not doing. I think we've got teachers who are inspirational. We've also got students who have aspirations to get further. I've been interviewing in Thurrock for the last 16 years and have seen such a difference in what children want to do. They started off, when I started to interview in this borough, they wanted to be models and footballers. Now they want to be barristers, lawyers, dentists. There are loads of things they want to do. So they have aspirations to get further. And I think teachers ought to be applauded for what they do. So I go into many, many schools and see that the teachers have something they want to give to the pupils, because the more teachers want to give, the better pupils are. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hewley, do you wish to speak as a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No.
Oh.
We're now going to final and on to the vote. So we move to Councillor Hewley first of all to give her a right to speak as seconder. I will then move on to Councillor Duffin as mover of the amendment, and then we will go back to yourself, Councillor Howden, and then on to the vote. Councillor Hewley, you have 3 minutes.
Sorry, so can I just clarify, I can't speak after the vote, I have to speak now?
Yes.
Right, then basically what I wanted to say is shame on you. How sad is it that you had to turn this motion to congratulate school children and teachers on the fantastic exam results into a political argument about national funding? If you wanted a discussion on national funding, bring a motion about national funding. It's about time, councillors, that we understood that sometimes we would do well in this chamber to put community first and leave our politics until second.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use my time now to talk about what we should be talking about, and that's saying well done and congratulations to all those who took exams this summer and to the excellent results that you achieved. And thank you to all those teachers that worked so hard to get the children to this level. English grade 4 up by 11%, English grade 5 up by 13%, Maths grade 4 up by 9%, Maths grade 5 up by 18%. Secondary schools performing significantly higher than the national average, and Thurrock has narrowed the disadvantage gap to 6.5%. That's a staggering 50% lower than the national average. So well done to all those involved. It's a job very, very well done.
Yeah. Councillor Duffin, as mover of the amendment, do you wish to have the right to reply?
Yeah, I'll just sum up some of the stuff from my perspective. It's great to hear this side praise the great work of teachers, and then since 2010 cut some of their wages by up to 15%. That's not really saying, thank you, you've done a great job. It's saying, actually, we want more money off you, we want to drive people out. And you might sit there and pat yourself on the back and go, great, the grades are up, but that doesn't mean they're going to sustain going up. While if the 8% cut is sustained, that's going to start falling off soon. So you might sit there and think everything's rosy, stick your head in the sand, but you've got to deal with the facts. If you're cutting money for teachers, you're cutting money for pupils, and you're cutting funding for schools, then something is going wrong.
Councillor Howden, do you wish to sum up? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, just need to correct Councillor Kent. His assertion that funding levels go up just because there are more children, therefore the funding is incidental. How many children were being taught in what were essentially corridors in East Tilbury Primary when they were induced to take on bulge classes but not given the capital? Because that's something this Conservative administration fixed when we gave East Tilbury Primary £3.5 million to expand. What did your administration do when Tilbury Pioneer had to cordon off an entire building because it was structurally unsound and they couldn't use it? A building in the heart of a ward dominated by Labour councillors for decades that myself and Councillor Cockshaw have helped wrangle the money to totally rebuild. It has taken 2.5 years to repair some of the damage done by the last Labour administration and the two portfolio holders who held the education brief, largely in Labour wards. I feel quite sorry for Councillor Duffin because it's like one of those wind-up toys where you crank the key at the back and it wanders off regardless. Results are up, even though exams are tougher. The disadvantage gap is smaller and is getting smaller year on year. More children are going to good schools and good nurseries than ever before, and he's trying to create this image of an underfunded hellscape. He does make a good point with the national funding formula that we have to introduce in Thurrock and how we introduce it. So out of curiosity, Councillor, what is the national funding formula level? No? No?
Okay, Councillor Howard, will you please sum up? You're not voting questions, you're summing up.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me, can you all please be quiet in the chamber? Councillor Howard, you have 1 minute 19 seconds left to sum up. Thank you.
I just think it's rather interesting for a motion to be proposed and attacking the level of the national funding formula, a decision that Cabinet will make in December and January, and not know what level it is and what we are going to set it at. That is quite interesting. I'm glad your education wasn't a Thurrock education because you're not a particularly good advert for it. And ultimately, the head of Ofsted today, I think, wrote to the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee, the head of Ofsted, and she said, while funding growth has slowed, inspectors are not seeing an impact on educational standards. So who do we believe is the authority on education?
Teachers.
Ofsted, Councillor Duffin. Ofsted, Councillor Duffin. Well, results are up. The only thing that's down is Councillor Duffin. So I think all in all, we'll take that one. But Madam Mayor, the results our schools have achieved are remarkable. And what's even more remarkable, if you consider the scale of change in how GCSEs are marked today, a child starting year 7 sits markedly different results in year 11. That is a huge change. Results being up is a remarkable testament to what our schools have achieved. They should be congratulated for it. And with the passage of this amendment, unfortunately, we will have to abstain on this motion.
To the end of the debate, and I will now go to the vote. We are now going to go to the vote on the amendment. Can people first of all say, are they in agreement with the amendment?
Agreed.
As it's not clear, can members clearly, I'll have to read this so I make sure I get absolutely right. Okay, it's not a unanimous agreement, so therefore we do need to take a vote. So I'm going to ask members now to clearly indicate if they are voting in favour of the motion, which is the amendment. Can people please raise their hands if they're voting for the amendment? Those against, please raise their hands. And any abstentions? As the amendment is carried, I'll now ask you to vote on the amended substantive motion. So we are now voting on the amendment which becomes the substantive motion. Can you please indicate now if you're voting for the substantive motion? All those against? And any abstentions? Okay, the motion is agreed. We now move on to motion 2. Councillor Bedell, do you wish to propose and speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you all know, this council has a history of unanimously opposing the Lower Thames Crossing proposal that would cut this borough in half. The scheme is currently out for statutory consultation since the 20th of December, and the council is encouraging everyone to get involved to tell Highways England exactly what they think of the scheme. The reality is that the Lower Thames Crossing fails to bring any benefits to local people for many reasons, not at least the lack of the Tilbury Link Road, motorway rest area in East Tilbury, elevated structures across the railway and Mardyke creating eyesores on the landscape, as well as very little connectivity to the road network itself, and amounts to a 3-lane motorway through the middle of this borough. All of this is extremely dissatisfactory for the residents of Thurrock and will do nothing but blight it. I brought this motion to ensure the council leaves no stone unturned in its determination to get the best for our borough. We have been and will continue to scrutinise the development consent order process at the Lower Thames Crossing. We will do all that we can by consistently challenging and reviewing the way in which consultation is being managed. But guess what? This is not new. We've been doing this for quite some time. One such measure may well be by the way of a judicial review, which could result in recourse to the courts to review the process which Highways England has followed in progressing this scheme. Looking ahead, if this motion is approved, we must be ready, should the need arise, to challenge this process. So what does it mean? Judicial review is the review of process or procedure or the review of an unreasonable decision. And I think everybody in this chamber will say unreasonable decisions have been made. The bar is very high for this, hence it's very difficult to find successful grounds to challenge. But now is the time to consider the possibility of this JR process and make clear that we feel what has been wrong in the approach of Highways England. So why have we done this before? If there had been grounds to challenge, I'm sure we would have taken them in the past, irrespective of who was in charge. However, Highways England has complied with the law in terms of the process so far, which has left little room for a JR. I know that residents have said, well, the council isn't doing nothing about this, but I can assure you we have been. We've been collecting the evidence against Highways England, noting their sheer disregard for the great work that the LTC task force has done. They're ignoring the requests from elected members of this council, and in my opinion, misleading the residents and the businesses across this borough and beyond. So what are the costs of this? These are the financial costs. A JR, to get the proceedings moving, can cost into the region of about £50,000. If unsuccessful, there is a possibility that the council will be ordered to pay the costs of the other party, but they are likely to be in a similar region. But we must remember that this administration committed over £360,000 to help gather evidence to rebut Highways England's claim and that their proposals are the best options for everyone. Because I've not heard from anyone who thinks these options are the best. So who's with us on this? When the final route announcement was made, it appeared that Thurrock Council, our 2 MPs and the Lower Thames Crossing Action Groups were the only ones saying that this was the worst of all options. Since then, the proposals actually got worse. However, Knowing I have the backing of all councillors made it easy for me and others to make clear our position. This has now led to the council leaders across South Essex, some council leaders across South Essex offering their opposition to the proposals. Even the Thurrock Business Board, which I've mentioned, has previously indicated their support for the scheme, has significantly changed their position and now are opposing the LTC in its current form, and I would take this opportunity to thank them for their support. No one wants it, and Highways England arrogantly continues to ignore the views of this council and the residents and the businesses alike in its pursuit of this new river crossing at this location. So I ask this Chamber's continued support on this matter. Put aside any personal politics. This is about 160,000 residents that will be blighted by this monstrosity that will cut through residents' home, affect their health, affect their well-being for years, whether it be just for the construction period or indeed for the life that is thereafter. And that's without bringing nothing to this borough but complete misery. On that, Madam Mayor, I ask you to put this to the Chamber for debate.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Peter Smith, would you like to reserve your right to speak or speak now?
I'll speak now, Madam Mayor.
Got 3 minutes. Thank you, Peter.
One of my favourite subjects, actually. What can I say about the Low Thames crossing that Rob hasn't already mentioned about the damage and detriment that's going to be brought to our borough? This is one of the largest road construction projects over the next decade. It's probably the largest project since the M25 was built, and it's in our backyard. And it's not us being NIMBYs, because we're not NIMBYs. We've already got 3 crossings, so you know, why do we want another one? We don't want another one. So, getting to Highways England, the interactions with the task force and officers alike can be best described as woeful, and if not comedy. This agency has time and time again failed to respond to the task force in a timely manner and has delayed our opportunities to challenge them on more than one occasion. It really is shambolic. Naturally, I'm delighted to have been offered the opportunity to second this motion this evening. I'm delighted that finally we are moving forward to looking at a judicial review. Even before we had a task force, it was clear that there were some opportunities on the table coming down the road, and I'm glad that we're going to be starting to clearly explore those and take a look at that. There's one little caveat I'd just like to add and finish with, and I think it's, I'm sure everybody is agreed that it's time now to walk the walk and not talk the talk. We need to get on with this, get stuck in. Our residents deserve it. Nobody wants this crossing. Let's make this so, and I hope the whole Chamber's fully behind this motion.
Thank you. We do have quite a few people that would like to speak on this motion, so if you could be as brief as possible, that would be great. Can we start with Councillor John Kemp?
Madam Mayor, I'll start by restating my long-held opposition to Highways England's proposed new crossing. And in doing that, I think we all understand that there is a real need for new crossings east of Tower Bridge. At least one, probably 3 or 4 crossings. But they have to be the right crossings in the right place. And these proposals will do nothing to add to the resilience of the local, the regional or the national road infrastructure. The truth is that a proposal that will take just 1 in 5 vehicles away from the existing Thames crossing at Dartford will create a new junction on the M25 and drive a motorway through Thurrock's Green Belt, will do nothing to ease the congestion that we all suffer here on an all too regular basis, and it will in fact make it worse. I'm really pleased that the Council is exploring whether there are grounds for additional review, and I will support that. But we do have to ask the question, what if that judicial review is denied or fails? So in the meantime, we have to galvanise local people. The Council needs to be providing evidence that local people can use to frame their responses to Highways England's consultation. We have to have a united stand against these monstrous proposals from Highways England and from the government, And that means the council, all councillors, irrespective of party, and as many Thurrock residents as we can get to fill those forms, to attend the consultation events and to make their voices heard. Last time there was a consultation on Highways England plans, it attracted more responses than any other similar consultation has ever drawn. Although detailed figures were not made available to us, everyone in Thurrock knows that thousands and thousands of those responses came from this borough. And yet the Highways Agency decided in its wisdom that many of those responses were too similar, so they should be counted together as one single response. Madam Mayor, we have to guard against allowing that to happen this time round. I think everyone in Thurrock has a reason to object to this latest proposal, whether it's noise or air pollution, increased congestion, the building of the service station at East Tilbury, the destruction of our heritage, of our green belt, the obliteration of the Mardyke Valley, or even the disappearance of the Port of Tilbury link, whether we like it or not. If they go ahead with these plans without that link, pollution will increase even further. So people will have their favourite objections, reasons that they can detail and they can relate to with or without help from the council. But those objections will be strengthened if other reasons are added as well. Those living in the area described as the toxic triangle, the area defined by the M25 to the west, the new road to the east and the Thames to the south, for example, should be seriously concerned about congestion and air pollution being much worsened by these proposals. The jams and fumes won't disappear at the current crossing, Madam Mayor. New jams will appear regularly at the new roads junction at Tilbury and the A13, if not at the M25. I urge everybody to support this motion.
Councillor Gerard Rice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Of course, definitely be supporting this motion. If we just take, for example, Chapel St Mary, this road is 300 yards away from places like Bodmin Road, Alexandra Close, Heathrow, and we're told by Highways England, oh, we're going to be ever so good, we'll submerge the road by 3 metres. In other words, they have scant regard for people's health. COPD is on the rise. We have those health questions. We have those health facts. We need to present those in a judicial review because Highways England have paid scant attention to them. And whilst we're at it, we should, as a council, flex our muscles through our members of Parliament and say to the government, why are we building yet another crossing that will link the M25? It's already a car park. So what we've got to do is talk about taking the crossing down to Canby Island, connected up with the A130. The government have announced that they're going to free lane the A12. The A120 is going to be free laned, which will link up to the M11. There are plans to look at the M11 being free laned by the government. And then, of course, we've got the A14 and the A1M1. These roads go straight up to the east of England and to the centre of our country, the Midlands, which the government wants to expand. Now, if we took that route, what it would effectively do is take pressure off the M25 instead of increasing that pressure. And these are the points we must make, because to commit 6.5 billion rising to 8.5, and perhaps it might even be 10 billion pounds by the time it's finished, is ludicrous, because it won't solve a problem. So we've got to say to the government, through our MPs and the council, let's have it reviewed and let's look again. Take the pressure off the M25, and not every transport link, new road, has to be going around London, because that's what we do not want.
Thank you. Councillor Little.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And of course, I will be supporting this proposal for the judicial review. My residents have been living with the threat of the Lower Thames crossing for over 10 years. And obviously, I'm opposed to the location of the Lower Thames crossing. Whilst I can see the need for new crossings, what I can't understand is the logic of where they're being put or the roads attached to the crossing passing through Thurrock. Once again, the consultation teams working up at Orset Hall were totally out of their depth and misleading to residents. When asked by one of my residents a simple question, why the road could not be moved further away from the village, the answer was, because of the electricity pylons. I would suggest a scheme worth billions upon billions of pounds with Highways proposing to build one of the biggest tunnels in Europe, and their designers come engineers can't even work out how to move a few pylons away from a village, beggars belief. What faith have I got in those people doing this road design? To add insult to injury, we are told not only will we have this highly toxic air polluting road going through our village, we will not even be able to access the monstrosity. I would suggest that we really begin to talk to Highways England, get their consultation teams who are delivering these points where local residents can go and get information, to get their act together, to know the information they're giving and to give the correct information and to be staffed properly. You know, I would also urge all councillors and to urge other people and residents to join the No to 10's action group, because it is a great source of information, and I think that would be really good for us all to do as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hooling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be agreeing with this motion. I think we'd be crazy not to. This affects everyone in Thurrock. Everybody needs to stand up against Highways England and all this crazy notion that they have, and engage with any consultation processes. Proposals are monstrous. The whole borough needs to stand together against this.
Thank you, Councillor Redfield.
We'll have to get together, Rob, more often.
I apologise. Joy.
I will support the motion, obviously, but when we've got to challenge, we're all together. It's good to see all 49 councillors on the same song sheet. Councillors are not informed. This is not going to benefit Thurrock in any way, shape or form. They've even changed it. They've come into Councillor Maney and I's ward now and moving pylons. As Councillor Little said, they are moving pylons now. Why can't they move them elsewhere? But I think we're not being informed. Highways England, I don't think actually the people in the where the meets happen, they don't know what they're talking about. I was asked the other day by somebody from Highways England, are there any houses in Long Lane? I said, really, you should do your homework. Thank you.
Councillor Spillman.
Thank you very much. Great motion. Watch the vanity project, what the last one was. But to say, I will support this motion. I've been fairly cynical about I'll be honest, I've been fairly cynical about the approach that the council has taken, that your administration has taken. I had concerns with how the task force was set up. I think we should have had the Thames Crossing Action Group as the centrepiece of that task force, rather than just as a member of it. I think that was the best way that we could have put this crossing to make it a real community-led opposition. Now, I don't think it's true to say that we were fully prepared for potential to do a judicial review after the first consultation. Indeed, I've had that confirmed to me in meetings by officers that we weren't as prepared as we should have been. But I just hope now. I mean, I do believe that you are opposed to this problem. If you can show the will to fight this to the end, you will have our unwavering support on this.
Can I just ask that you ask Councillor Churchman to apologise for swearing at Councillor Spillman when he started to speak? It's not the sort of language we should ever hear in this chamber.
Just one moment, please. Can I just speak? I didn't hear anybody swear. Councillor Churchman, I will ask you, Councillor Churchman, please, I will ask you, have you sworn during this meeting at another member?
No, I have not, Madam Mayor. And point of order, Madam Mayor. See, we're getting to the point of what people do in chambers. I've been sitting here watching this man for God knows how long, playing with his phone when we all have the decency to turn it off.
Thank you, Councillor Churchman. Would you please take your seat? I'm now going to ask Councillor Gledhill to sum up. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Gledhill, to sum up. We have run out of time. We're going to sum up. Sorry, can I just clarify, because I'm getting gestures from other members. I'm in control of this meeting, not anybody else. Councillor Gledhill, you have 3 minutes to sum up and then move to the vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Only I'm in charge of this meeting. You're doing an excellent job showing you're in charge of this meeting, as you have done every single meeting, so thank you. I'm just going to sum up, mainly by just addressing obviously some of the great statements that have come from everybody. Councillor Kent, obviously you said we shouldn't be putting all our eggs in one basket, and you're spot on. And you're equally spot on. We should not just assume that residents will fill this out. We've got to urge every single resident, every single business and every single worker, whether they live in Thurrock or not, to fill one of these in and make very clear to Highways England that it's going to affect them. And to say, as Councillor Kent quite correctly pointed out, to say that we had so many that were similar, we just disregarded some, is just an absolute shocking approach. It's the kind of thing you expect to see in some no-mark country in the middle of nowhere with some tin-pot dictator saying, you know what, I don't like those votes, I'm going to just put them in somebody else's pile. It's absolutely disgusting. I just need to clarify though, it's not a service station that's going in East Tilbury, it's a service area. We're talking about some toilets and picnic tables. And where do they think this is? Sort of like in 1984, you know, in Central Europe somewhere? No, this would just be a waste of money and will not be used, they will be misused. Who's going to pick up the bill? Quite probably the taxpayer. Councillor Rice, again, spot on. As a nation, we do need either a new London Ring Road or a new London bypass, whatever you wish to call it. And putting the crossing further on down the river will give more bang for buck in doing so. And actually, touching back on what Councillor Kent said, we do need these extra crossings east of Tower Bridge, but let's get the London ones in first and see what the impact is. Let's make sure that we're actually thinking about this, not just for now, not just for a question of, like, from the 1990s about relieving pressure at Dartford Summer, but how are we going to move this nation forward strategically into the next century? Councillor Little, yeah, Highways England not being able to answer questions even of a basic sort. Just a few days before announcing this absolute monster of a route proposal, but we're giving out of-date information, misleading residents. We heard about pylons, some moving, some not moving. For crying out loud, if you're doing 1, 2, 3, do the lot. Just do it and do it once. And a big thanks actually goes to Councillor Spillman. I nearly welled up actually in your statement there. Not only because you were sort of thanking and agreeing, but yeah, you're right. I will continue fighting this, irrespective of whether I'm leader of the council, I'm leader of this group, or just an ordinary councillor. I will continue to fight this. This has got no benefits at all for this borough. So thank everybody. I hope that we're going to agree to this at the vote. It empowers me, it empowers our directors and officers to take this forward. It sends a message out to our residents. We're lockstep with all of them in relation to this. It sends lockstep message out to the Thurrock Business Board, and hopefully all the other partners will actually start to see the view of Thurrock. Yes, this might be great for certain parts of Kent. Yes, this might be great for other parts of Essex, but it's an absolute travesty for the residents of Thurrock, and indeed probably the nation as a whole when it all grinds to a halt. Don't forget, without us, 80% of the bread will stay in Tilbury, 90% of the fuel will stay where it comes in, and all the cars that need to come in and out of this country as part of our exports will not be delivered. So thanks everyone for hopefully backing this motion.
Thanks. We're going to now move to the vote. Are members in agreement with this motion? Agreed. All agreed. Are there any against? The motion is carried. Okay, Chamber, it's now 9:30. It's the close of the meeting. Any report items outstanding are deemed formally moved and seconded and shall be put to the vote without debate. Members with motions still to be heard can either speak on the motion for no more than 3 minutes before the motion goes to the vote without debate, or they can withdraw the motion and resubmit to the next available meeting. So I ask, first of all, Councillor Spillman, would you like to speak for 3 minutes? Thank you. And well, can I just ask Councillor Kemp, would you like to speak for 3 minutes? Thank you. We move to Councillor Spillman. You have 3 minutes.
Can I pass through the statement? Just go straight to the speech. Is that okay?
Yep, you have 3 minutes.
This motion has been brought about by, I think there's a dissatisfaction with how we're functioning as a democratic institution. I don't think that frustration is just from one party. I think there's probably an acceptance, amongst the whole chamber that there are problems. In the last municipal year, when I was chair of housing at ONS, I instructed the housing department to bring a report about the quality of services being offered to victims of domestic violence and people experiencing mental health issues. It's an issue that is important to me. It's an issue that should be important to anyone. So, Frank, the report that came to me was absolutely embarrassing, and I had to throw it out. I know there's a bit of disagreement about the sprint promotion that went to committee. Again, I think that report was entirely inadequate. I've seen departments and sometimes the administration ignore recommendations by committees. And that's sad to see. Motion after motion, I think, is kicked into the long grass, and we see very little progress on a lot of the motions we do. We've seen a department undermining, potentially, the allegations that the department has undermined a committee by refusing to cooperate, resulting in a chair resigning in protest. Now, whether or not that's accurate or not, the fact that that has occurred needs looking into. It needs looking into. Regarding full council, we've not seen a single substantive vote in this council, other than motions which aren't binding, since the budget in February. This council is disempowered. This full council is as lacking in business as it ever has been. It's quite depressing. It really is. It's my belief that this chamber is now just turned into a coffee shop. That's what it's been reduced to. It should be an important decision-making body, an important body for serious debate about really serious issues. I think that I can see the democratic processes in this council crumbling. Full council should support this. This motion calls on the council to investigate how we can reverse this decline, or analyse this decline, or just improve the way that we do business. I urge all members to support it.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote. Are we agreed on the motion? Agreed. The motion is carried. Councillor Kemp, you have 3 minutes to speak to your motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For as long as I can remember, so certainly for over 40 years, residents of Lodge Lane and Grays, I think everybody knows Lodge Lane, have been able to park on the crossovers that lead to their drives, despite the fact that there are double yellow lines the full length of the road. In the days before decriminalisation of parking, the police took a common sense approach and would book people that parked on a grass verge, therefore churning up the verge, or in a way that obstructed the pavement, that would leave people that were parked on a crossover. There are very few other places nearby for anybody to park if they're visiting, for instance. Then in 2005, when decriminalisation of parking came in, the council took over responsibility and they wrote to residents. I'll read the letter. I write with reference to the recent correspondence advising all residents of Lodge Lane that the enforcement of the parking restrictions double yellow lines will commence on Monday the 25th of July 2005. At this time, any vehicle parking on the grass verges of Lodge Lane and footpath areas will be issued a penalty charge notice. It will be acceptable for vehicles to park on the drive leading to the properties but must not cause an obstruction by parking on or across the footpath. Madam Mayor, that is common sense. Common sense. What we've had over the last few months is a total absence of common sense. The council, without consultation with residents, without consultation with board members, has decided that it is now going to enforce those double yellow lines no matter where you're parked, even if you're parked on your own crossover. When this has been raised with officers have told us there is no alternative, we must enforce the restrictions. And yet they've written to residents and they say the notification to residents dated on the 13th of August 2018 alerts the end of the suspended enforcement period, and I've got to put my glasses on. Sorry. I'll start again. The notification to residents dated the 13th of August 2018 alerts the end of the suspended enforcement period, and this letter provides residents with a further 28 days notice of the end of the moratorium period on the 10th of October 2018. Madam Mayor, that suggests that the council does have options. One of the options could be to have an extended moratorium of, say, a year, during which the council could explore other options for dealing with this, and if there are no other options, to have another moratorium in another year's time. There has to be a common sense answer to this problem. I have genuinely never come across an issue where every single resident that you speak to in an area is of one mind. It's taken weeks and weeks and weeks to get a petition together, Madam Mayor, because every resident's door you knock on wants to talk about this for 15 or 20 minutes. I will stop there, but I would ask if I can have 5 members standing for a requisition vote.
We'll now move to a requisition vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, I will call your name if you can indicate that you're for, against or abstain. Councillor Atlas. For. Councillor Akibowen. Councillor Akibowen. Oh, sorry, for. Councillor Allen.
For this motion.
Councillor Anderson. Against. Councillor Baker. For. Councillor Baldwin. For. Councillor Cherry. For. Councillor Churchman. Against. Councillor Collins.
Against.
Councillor Cockshaw.
Against.
Councillor Duffin. For. Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Councillor Gamester. For. Councillor Gerrish.
For.
Councillor Gledhill.
Against.
Councillor Howden.
Against.
Councillor Hamilton. For. Councillor Henry.
Against.
Councillor Holloway.
For.
Councillor Hewlin.
Against.
Councillor Jeffries.
Against.
Councillor Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Cathy Kent.
For.
Councillor John Kent.
For.
Councillor Kerrin.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor Midyard. For. Councillor Little.
Against.
Councillor McPherson.
Against.
Councillor Maney.
Against.
Councillor Okanadi.
For.
Councillor Piccolo.
Against.
Councillor Potter.
For.
Councillor Redser.
Against.
Councillor Barbara Rice.
For.
Councillor Gerard Rice.
For.
Councillor Rigby.
Against.
Councillor Shinnock.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Spillman.
For.
Councillor Tolson. I think he's left. Councillor Watkins.
Against.
And Councillor Warren.
For.
Vote is carried. Okay, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you all very much for the lively debate. Let's hope we have better behaviour next month. And good night and safe journey home.